tax cuts and reform. Is this coincidental? Not. Does President Trump really think that blaming Hillary and the Democrats is his best defense tonight? For more, I'm joined by Bret Stephens, columnist with the New York Times and MSNBC contributor as well, and former U.S. Congressman Nan Hayworth, who's now on the board of directors at the Independent Women's Forum. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. Bret, I want to start with you about strategy. Does deflection to Hillary have any value here? Because, well, doesn't it? I'm an open question.
Yeah, well, look, it's a terrific strategy because Donald Trump, I think, learned long ago that truth is what you can get away with. And I guess the corollary to that is truth is what people will let you get away with. I mean, Trump saw an opening in the fact that the Clinton campaign seems to have either lied or at least not told the truth about its role in paying for some of the research that went to Fusion GPS, some of the opposition research. This, to me, strikes me as irrelevant. Well, the only relevant issue is whether the research in that dossier is true. But they've been able, as you said, to wave enough terrible towels in the face of the media that people are buying it. And don't be surprised if the next thing that Trump does is simply issue a blanket pardon to everyone, including Manafort, Page, and so on, perhaps including himself, to simply put this behind him.
Let me go to the Congresswoman. Do you believe Donald Trump at his word?
I had no evidence to think otherwise in terms of any of these dealings that we've been talking about,
Donald Trump spent a year saying that Barack Obama was an illegal immigrant who snuck in the country, assumed a false identity, really didn't go to the schools he went to, nobody knew him, and somehow became president. He stuck to that line till some Friday afternoon, and he dumped it and said, I didn't really believe that. Did you believe it all those months? Did you believe Donald Trump with his birther theory?
I believe that President Obama was born in Hawaii, but Chris, that's not the point here.
Well, why do you now believe Trump is telling the truth? Is he a truth teller?
That's not the point here.
It isn't?
The point is,
I asked you, do you take him at his word? I'm just asking that simple question.
I am absolutely taking the president at his word.
So when he says that his people never that there was no Russian involvement in the campaign, that the Russians never tried to pursue an overture to his campaign to offer them dirt on Hillary, even as we're getting this testimony under oath, we're getting this, and you're denying the truth of that and believing Trump when he says there was no Russian attempt to influence our campaign, no Russian influence in the campaign, nobody in my campaign had anything to do with flirting with them to receive that information. You stick to that line.
Chris, what the president has said substantively is that the Russians did not assist. He did not have assistance from the Russians in winning the 2016 election, which he did not. It's very clear, Chris. It's clear to every American with any common sense that the Russians have tried to manipulate on both sides of the aisle in the 2016 election. But in fact, where they
just reported 126 million people were given Facebook advertisements from the Russians to influence the campaign. Isn't that significant a little?
Chris, listen to me. Number one, we all have to be discerning consumers of information. That's eminently clear, no matter what our political persuasion is. But there has been an avalanche of information. As you know, the FBI has just released a major informant from his NDA regarding the millions and millions of dollars that flowed into the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, the $500,000 that went to President Bill Clinton to speak with a Russian bank. All the while, Secretary Clinton was one of 9 cabinet members on CFIUS, the board approving effectively the sale of 20% of our uranium supply to Russia.
That was all done That was not illegal. That was done. You can argue about. By the way, the uranium cannot reach any other country but the United States without the approval of the United States. So this idea that they're the Rosenbergs and they should be executed is insane. Let me go back to this thing. Have you any evidence that Hillary Clinton got any help by the Russians in the 2016 election?
I think there's plenty of evidence coming that Hillary Clinton effectively got help. And by the way, where are her 33,000 emails? Connect the dots, Chris.
Give me some evidence.
Okay, Frank Giustra, right, whose company was Uranium One, collaborating with Rosatom, gave under cover of being Canadian, so being a foreign citizen, so it didn't have to show up immediately on their disclosures. What a clever idea.
What did that have to do with the campaign?
Millions and millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton Global Initiative, and Hillary Clinton is either so clueless or ignorant that she has no idea of it. Chris, that just defies common sense.
Okay.
There is real Russian collusion and intervention and cooperation
I want to go back. Congresswoman, you know this. You know that uranium cannot be transported outside the United States. So why are you...
Here's something
why are you talking about
Chris.
it being some sort of a Rosenberg case kind of situation? It cannot be sent outside the United States under federal law. Why do you keep suggesting there was some intrigue here?
Okay, well, let me give you a name. Vadim Milkarin, McCarran. He is the only figure, he is one figure who was finally indicted after years and convicted after years of investigation of the collusion and the connections between the Russians and the Russian nuclear industry and the Americans. And what he was doing was effectively bribing and overcharging for the transport of commercial uranium by Russian sellers to United States nuclear plants, nuclear fuel.
How does that provide strategic materials to Russia? Anyway, what has this got to do with the problem? What's this got to do with Donald Trump's problem right now? His campaign manager's just been indicted on huge numbers of counts that could put him away for 30 or 40 years. He is being squeezed by the special prosecutor. You've got Papadopoulos, who's just come out. It turns out that he was getting overtures from the Russians, just like Jared Kushner was getting a month later. There's all evidence here that there was collusion, or certainly close to collusion, and you're laughing because I know that technique.
I'm
but that doesn't
laughing
exonerate Trump laughing about it.
Chris, I'm laughing because the collusion is all very evidently on the Clinton side, okay? So the Russians were overcharging us for our own uranium, for heaven's sakes. They were reselling it to us at a profit.
They're not allowed to get the uranium under our laws, and you know that.
They were selling commercial uranium to United States nuclear plants at an inflated profit with the apparent benign oversight by the United States government.
Is what you're saying now going to in any substantive way protect Trump's operation from prosecution? Because it's moving forward, the prosecution. You have a guy pleading a case today, pleading himself out so he can talk, obviously, Papadopoulos. You've got another fellow who was chairman of your campaign last year, chairman of the president's campaign, who now faces multi-years of imprisonment. How can you say all we're going to have to do is waive this little distraction and everybody's going to think about something else? It doesn't matter what right-wingers think about something else. What matters is the prosecution and the evidence they're developing, and all your talk about distraction isn't going to help your side.
Chris, only you consider it a distraction. Folks from the left consider it a distraction. Robert Mueller, when he was FBI director, was examining this entire relationship for years. All the Russian overcharging and
I think you're doing your best. I understand what I've seen this before in politics. I get it. But it's not going to stop the reality.
Chris.
Brett Stevens, I've got to give you the last word. Brett, you know, I watched Watergate in real time like a lot of people did. And after all the arguments and distractions and get off his back and Rabbi Korf and all the cultural division that went with that and the hard hats on his side, in the end, it was the evidence. In the end, it was the evidence that he was part of the cover-up. The 23rd tape.
Right.
And will this case end on the evidence, do you think?
Well, look, it's hard to claim collusion between Clinton and the Russians when she was the one who suffered from the Russian disclosures of her emails. And I would say to the Congresswoman, look, I'm on the political right. I voted for Republicans in every election up until the last one. It's conservatives who should be most concerned about the fact that so many members, senior members of the Trump campaign, were so interested in changing the tone with Russia to the point that they were willing to change the Republican Party platform in order to appease Russian interests. That was the same kind of policy you and other Republicans were criticizing when it was the reset under the Obama administration with Russia. It should be Republicans who are most concerned that there was so much collusion between or cooperation or commonality of interest between the person who is now the president of the United States and the government of the Soviet Union.
By the way, Congresswoman, with all due respect, and I don't mean that sarcastically, a lot of our viewers are chuckling, even hooting at the idea that Hillary is part of the American left. They don't believe that. Thank you so much, Brett Stevens, and thank you, Dan Hayward of New York.
Congratulations on your book.
Thank you very much. Up next, the special